Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Sisters, welcome to today's class. Inshallah, we will be having our classes on a weekly basis, inshallah, via live stream until we can, inshallah, meet back in person. So, alhamdulillah, it's a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He's given us this opportunity. And we thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for His opportunity and for His blessings. And we ask Him to increase His blessings on us and never deprive us from His blessings. Ameen ya Rabbil Alameen. So, inshallah, what we want to do today is, inshallah, is um, there we go. We've turned on the chat, so if anyone wants to ask any questions, please feel free to do so. And inshallah, once we are through with our questions, we will continue with the book where we left off. For those who are joining us first time, just want to let you know that alhamdulillah, we have this class on a weekly basis at the masjid, at the Islamic Association of Collin County, and the name of the book is How to Be the Ideal Muslimah. So it talks about how to be the perfect Muslimah in submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There is a 10-step process as to how to become that individual. And alhamdulillah, we are right now discussing a Muslim woman's relationship with her spouse, her husband. And inshallah, we are trying to extract from these discussions necessary pointers that we can use to better our lives so we can better our connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that being said, inshallah, just want to make sure that the comments are coming in. Some messages, all messages. Okay, so if anyone wants to send a message, please do so. Inshallah, please do share any thoughts, concerns, or questions you have. While we're waiting for questions, just wanted to state that yes, we are in a very peculiar situation this afternoon as we sit in our homes. This has been an ongoing dilemma for a few days now, and only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows how long this will continue for. Truly, it's heartbreaking. It actually is testing our patience. It's testing our morals and values. It's testing our ability to endure. And that's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Holy Quran continued to remind us about patience. He reminded us about Him being with those who are patient, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave glad tidings to those who are patient in times of difficulty and distress. And truly, this is a test for us. This is a test from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the entire humanity, for this entire world. People in different levels, some in selective things, some in a multitude of things are being tested. Some are being tested in their jobs, some are being tested financially in their homes, some are being tested in their spirituality, some are being tested in their health as we speak with this virus. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is testing. He has been testing us till this moment. It's not like Allah decided it's 2020, let's do something different now. No, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has been testing us. If we were able to successfully pass those tests and to understand what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted from us, then there's hope. There is hope that this great test that we are now in, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give us the same resources and ability and endurance to get through this. If we have brushed off all previous tests from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and had a no care attitude, like I don't care if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does it or doesn't do it, I don't care, then may Allah forbid, these days are going to be really tough on all of us. You know, at a moment like this, people are seeking help. They're seeking professional advice. They're seeking health experts. They're seeking direction from their city leaders. It is in times like this that we need to seek out those who are people of Allah, because it's only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that can actually alleviate this, and we need the right people who have connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make that possible. Who are those people? Well, look in the mirror. It's you. Every single one of us is a person of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As Muslims, we believe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us such a religion that allows us to connect with Him in a way that we can truly experience this divine connection, and through this divine connection, tap into the treasures of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and change a status quo that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has presented to this world. These are the people of Allah that Allah has given us the time to become. Now it's a time to use those powers. And if we feel that those powers aren't there, we have the time right now to do that. We have time to read Quran. The question is, how come it is so difficult for me to pick up the Quran? We have time to pray. The question is, how come it's so difficult for me to stand up and pray 2 rakat tawbah and ask Allah for forgiveness? We have time to do dhikr. How come it has become so difficult for me to even say Subhanallah? Well, because our bodies have been accustomed to seeing physical results, tangible results, things that we can do with our bodies, things that we can do with our minds, things we can do with our words. This is beyond all three of those. And so, to make our spirituality front and center and allow our soul to dictate the body as to what needs to be done, that the body, when everyone is standing in commotion, sits in submission. When the bodies out there are running for their food and water, the soul sits in remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the mentality, this is the demeanor, this is the mindset we need right now. And so we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for that mindset. And we are now, inshallah, going to prepare ourselves in this blessed month of Rajab, this sacred month, the month in which the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam went for Mi'raj. Keep in mind, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam went for Mi'raj in this month, and most of the scholars agree that date will correlate with this Sunday. Subhanallah, that the Prophet ﷺ was taken from Mecca to Aqsa, and from Aqsa to the heavens. He spoke with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala showed him miraculous things. It's time for us to make those spiritual journeys. It's time for our souls to make that journey for the sake of this world. This world has been entrusted to all of us, and we have a responsibility to ensure that we execute accordingly. The time is ours, the time is now. The world is calling on us. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to do what is right. Ameen ya Rabbil Alameen. So that being said, inshallah, I still don't see any comments, and I don't know why that is happening. I will just keep the comment box open, and let me just learn more here. What's going on? Oops. Okay, alhamdulillah. So we'll start with the class, inshallah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. The last discussion we had was about how to appreciate each other as a couple. Now, many a times we will hear either the husband or the wife say, my spouse doesn't appreciate me, so why should I appreciate them? The relationship of marriage isn't a tit for tat. Okay, they do it, so I do it. They don't do it, I don't need to do it. It's a relationship that's built on a connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And our duty is to strive to ensure that that connection with Allah occurs through my marriage. My marriage is going to have its tests, but I need to make sure through that marriage I get Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That doesn't mean, and it doesn't denote, that you have to go through abuse and so on and so forth. We've talked about this in class extensively. It means you have to have the ability to weather the storms of emotional disconnect at time, stubbornness, loss for words. There's a lot of things that happen in a marriage, especially with all the foreign components that are added to a relationship and to an individual on a daily basis. Individual could be, this could be the individual, but the things that are happening in the world from their work and everything else kind of just layers up around the person, and this person becomes just this one big chunk of problems. And these problems are occurring because all the problems have accumulated on the individual. The individual's already weighed down with all this excessive additional weight. And the worst thing that happens is that that weight is then brought home and it's added to the family and it's added to the marriage itself, and it becomes a mega storm. So we hear here that we learn here that Asma bint Abi Bakr as-Siddiq served her husband Zubair and took care of the house. Her husband had a horse. She took care of it. She fed it and made sure that she exercised it. She also repaired the water bucket, made bread, and carried dates on her head from far away. Imam Bukhari and Imam Muslim report in their own words, Zubair married me, and he had no wealth, no slaves, nothing except a horse. I used to feed his horse, look after it, and exercising it. I crushed date stones to feed his camel. I used to bring water and repair the bucket, and I used to make bread, but I could not bake it. So some of my Ansari neighbors, who were kind women, used to bake it for me. I used to carry the dates from the garden that the Prophet ﷺ had given to Zubair on my head, and the garden was 2/3 of a farsakh, meaning it was more than a kilometer away. One day I was coming back with the dates on my head. I met the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. What do we say, everyone? Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I met the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he had a group of his companions with him. He called me, then told his camel to sit down so that I could ride behind him. I told Zubair, I felt shy because I know that you are a jealous man. He said it would be worse for me to see you carrying the dates on your head than to see you riding behind the Prophet Muhammad. Later, Abu Bakr, her father, radiallahu anhu, sent to me a servant who relieved me of having to take care of the horse. It was as if I had been released from slavery. Now, understand these points, because there's a hadith also where Aisha radiallahu anha talks about suffering and said that we suffered so much in Makkah and we're suffering now, and we're the most suffering woman in Arabia. Understand what she's saying here. As a couple, she was committed to doing whatever she could to make the house whole. There's never going to be a 50-50 in the home. That 50% of the chores he does and 50% of the chores she does. There'll be days when one will carry all the burden, and there'll be days the other one will carry all the burden. You have to factor this in on, for example, the absence of one due to health emergency or due to travel, or because one themselves is sick. There's so many factors in a marriage where the scale continues to tip one side to the other, and you cannot expect that um, things will be hunky dory. And we've written down this, this chart, and the line is very clearly divided. He will do this and she will do that. It really doesn't work like that in a marriage. And if you're trying to make your marriage work like that, I'm sorry, it's not going to work. It's called teamwork. And just like in any team, basketball, soccer, there are designated positions on the court or on the football pitch. But what happens is that many a times players improvise for other players once they move from that territory, and they move from that territory maybe because of something bigger. So if the left wing runs forward, then someone comes up and cover. If a defender goes to midfield, someone comes back and helps out. It's called teamwork. You can't just stand there and say, oh, that ball went in, it's because your fault, you were not there. If that's the mentality you have in a marriage will never work. She was committed to marrying Zubair radiallahu an, and she's a daughter of Abu Bakr radiallahu an, Asma. May Allah be pleased with her. And her father was rich, and her father was well to do. And she married this person who she said had no wealth. He had nothing. So, this first point actually highlights, when we're looking, there is something in Islam called kufu, and I think we spoke briefly about that, which means equality in marriage, to ensure that they're of like around the same age, they're around the same financial status, they're around the same education mark, only because it will help make that blend of marriage easier. If they're from two different spectrums, those factors may cause the marriage to have more problems. And so, to eliminate any factor that can cause difficulty, is why there's something in our Islam called kufu. Urdu mein kehte isko barabari. So what happens here is that she married him, she knew he was poor, and she picked up all the slack. He was out working. She's taking care of the house, she's taking care of the horse, she's taking care of the dates, she's making sure she's going a kilometer away to bring the dates. And the Prophet Muhammad offered her a ride, and her husband said, I'd rather have you ride with him than to ride, to walk that distance. You know, it's truly profound when you listen to the elders of the past, and they would talk about the difficulties that they endured. Those difficulties actually made the marriage stronger. It was their blood and sweat that they sacrificed for each other that made the marriage worthwhile. And if we don't put, like, alhamdulillah, everyone has their means, and mashallah, it's really good if you have people who come and clean your house and cook your food and do your groceries, whatever else. But if you're not investing yourself into your marriage, money is something else. Money doesn't mean you're investing yourself, you're investing your resources, and we put our resources wherever we want to. We can waste money here, we can spend money there. It's not about how much money you spend, it's how much of yourself you spent. And so she committed, and she continued without complaint. He wasn't imposing on her slavery. He wasn't making life difficult on her. He didn't take her from riches to rags. She voluntarily came into this marriage. And so she accepted it and she went on with it. And he did what he could do and she did what she wanted to do. When she says that it was as if she was released from slavery, it was because of the fact that the burden of responsibility that she had become accustomed to suddenly dropped because someone else came to take care of what? The horse. She was taking care of the house, the cooking, the garden, but the horse was a very big responsibility that she said that she couldn't. And Abu Bakr radiallahu anh sent a servant over, and she then employed the servant for the sake of the horse. And she said, like, it felt like I just got released from slavery. It's a metaphor. It doesn't mean that she was in slavery. So when Aisha radiallahu anha said those same words that many Islamophobes use to say that even the mother of the believer says that we're in tough situations, it was her venting her frustration. No doubt, Islam has given such an honorable rank to our sisters. No other religion has, and it's point blank written in the Quran, in the Hadith, what Rasulullah SAW did. And we also learned it here in this book for those who've been with us on this 181-page journey thus far. So the author goes on to say the true Muslim woman devotes herself to taking care of her house and her husband. She knows her husband's rights over her and how great they are, as it was confirmed by the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So she is committing. Now the question is, what about the husband's right? Well, there's a book called The Ideal Muslim, and that's where that's spoken about. This is about the ideal Muslimah. Many times we want assurance and we want to feel comfort by hearing what other people are doing wrong, by being told what other people are slacking off on. This is not what our Islam's about. I need to learn what I need to do. Regardless if the other person learns or not, I need to help them learn. And if they don't learn, it's between them and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But I need to learn for myself. Many times people, this is the environment we're living in. That's why we're suffering in our world today. I'm sorry to say this. We're suffering in our world today because each one of us wants to absolve our duties. We want to absolve ourselves from the duties and responsibility because we can point on someone and say, look, they're not doing it. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you enough sense to see they're not doing it. Turn that around and say, what am I doing then? Am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing? This tit for tat has gone on for too long in our ummah, and it's become so toxic that no one out there wants to do the good, but everyone wants to point out who's not doing the good. No one wants to say, you know what, I want to be the person who does good. I want to be the best spouse. I want to be the best mother. I want to be the best husband. I want to be the best wife. I want to be the best child. These aspirations are not in our world anymore. Everyone just wants to say, oh, wait, at least I'm doing something. Look at what they're doing. And that's why our marriages are collapsing. And that's why our communities are collapsing. And that's why our masjids are plagued with divisions and groups. And that's why everything is closed today, sisters. That's why everything is closed today. I promise you, if the ummah stands up and cries to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah will remove this. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has so much power. He is the most powerful. But the question is, do I want to surrender to that power of Allah? Or do I want to hold on to my power and expect Allah accepts my power to be part of the equation? So it's a battle. Today our battles with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May Allah forgive us for even picking that battle. Ameen ya Rabbil Alameen. So we then went on, and that's where we paused a couple of weeks ago. And the Prophet ﷺ then in a hadith states that if it was permitted for anyone to prostrate to anyone, I would have permitted I would have ordered the wives to prostrate to the husbands because of the greatness of the rights they have over them. This is hadith many people would want to shy away from and just bypass because it sounds so controversial. Let's understand something here. In the past nations, such as Yusuf alayhi salam, we learn from the story that Allah tells in the Quran, which is the greatest story, the best story, the story that's plagued with trials upon trials on one person, only for us to see how those trials turn around and make him an amazing person, a prophet, minister of food and agriculture, Yusuf alayhi salam. And the story starts with a dream and the story ends with the interpretation of the dream of prostration. When he says he saw the sun and the moon and stars prostrating to him, Allah then showed that to him and to us all in the Quran by his entire family, all his brothers, his mom and his dad prostrating to him in gratitude. So prostration is an act that's been ongoing in past times. Prostration has been ongoing in past times as an act of respect. These were things that the Quran tells us, just like Allah told the angels to prostrate to Adam alayhi salam. Allah didn't say worship. Allah said prostrate. It was a symbol of respect. In this ummah, we don't do that. We do not bow to anyone because that bowing can be misinterpreted tomorrow to mean worship. Just like people bow to, for example, Buddha. Uh, are they worshiping Buddha? Why are they prostrating towards him? Is that what this whole thing was about? Well, it's easy to take something and make it and misconstrued, and for it to become misconstrued over time because people will then take it out of context. So in this ummah, the Prophet ﷺ forbid us from bowing down in front of anyone except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So sajda, prostration, is exclusive to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That being said, the Prophet ﷺ said that if this trend were to continue between humans, then he would have told the wives to prostrate to the husband. Why? Why does this happen? Why can't the husbands prostrate to the wives? What is this problem here? What is the Prophet ﷺ trying to tell us? Well, before we make this misogynistic claim or to say the Prophet ﷺ was anti-women or whatever else, this is not the alarms of feminism. This is about the words, the wise words of our Habib sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Understand them in his words, in the context that he's presenting, before trying to take it out of context. The Quran states that الرِّجَالُ قَوَّامُونَ عَلَى النِّسَاءِ. We discussed this already in our class, that men are superior over women. Men are not superior over women. Men have been made responsible over women on what? Not because they spend their money exclusively. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave a few examples. Because they spend from the wealth, and because Allah has made the status as such. This is either beef with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala if you don't understand what Allah is saying. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is creating the understanding of what teamwork is. And in any team of any sport that people amuse themselves with, there's always a captain. The captain doesn't have to be the best player. The captain has to be the player that will lead the team. Now, the captain that leads a team could be a goalkeeper, it could be a guard, it could be anyone, depending on the sport. But the captain's job is to ensure that the responsibility of executing and winning is on that person's shoulder. And if the team wins, the captain shares that success with the team. And if the team loses, the captain assumes responsibility for himself. And then, of course, there's a coach. Now, understand here, in marriage, there's two people. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala already defined the man is the captain, meaning what? He is responsible on the day of judgment as he's responsible today for any mess ups. If it goes good, it's a team effort, it's a team success. And if something is done wrong, the buck stops on the man, he is responsible. So Allah has defined the captain being the man because Allah created the man before he created the woman, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put the burden of making sure the marriage and the family and the community is protected on the captain, and that's the man. It doesn't mean that the captain now is a dictator or a king, because any team, it doesn't matter how good the team may have been, if the captain is a dictator and doesn't have teamwork ability, the whole team will crumble. And if there is no teamwork in a marriage, the marriage will crumble. Brothers and sisters, for the brothers who are watching and for the sisters whose class this is are watching, understand something today. Our marriages in our society are void of teamwork. Rasulullah consulted with Aisha radiallahu anha. He consulted with her. They consulted over the smallest minuscule things. Like what's going to be cooked today? Like why do you want to care about what's cooked? Why not have a surprise? Well, guess what? A surprise, an expectation can be destructive. When you're going out about, you're thinking, you know what? Today I'm going to have some good biryani at home, and you come home and there's only a peanut butter sandwich. That's already caused problems. Why didn't you discuss these things? So in teams, there's no surprises. Everything is clear. So the woman and the man work. A woman and a man work together in marriage as a team. They discuss. They consult. They collaborate. They communicate. But at the end, for example, a husband and wife have a discussion, and the wife says, "No, we're gonna do this," and the husband says, "We're gonna do that." But then they decide on what she says, and if it ends up being wrong for the family, he's responsible, not her. Just because it was her opinion does not make it her fault. So marriage is such a big institution in our society that's crumbled to the ground today, and there's no marriage out there that's actually thriving. There's marriages that are maintaining. Everyone's maintaining their marriage. Like, you know what? I don't want to go through a divorce. Let's just maintain this thing for the sake of the kids, for the sake of our parents, for the sake of society, for the sake of face. Na'udhu billah. But we don't understand that marriage is such an important thing. It protects our society. And when divorce is proclaimed, it shakes the throne of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We don't understand these things anymore. You know why? Because it means nothing. Why do I care? Why, na'udhu billah, why should I care that Allah's throne shakes? I have my life. I deserve better. Well, let me tell you something. You could have the best of players, but if they don't gel as a team, then those best players in the world are going to become the biggest destruction to the team. And so it doesn't matter who you are, who your husband is, who your wife is. If you're not working as a team, you cannot accomplish success together. Being a team means taking on challenges. It means, moving forward. It means taking the journey. Right now, the best to best marriages are just stagnant. They're like, let's stay in this little bubble here. Let's stay in this cocoon. It sounds peaceful right now. There's no noise. Let's keep it like that. No, that's not a successful marriage. That's a marriage that's a bubble waiting to burst. And so we have to discuss that. Inshallah, our community was going to have the marriage seminar, and up till now it is postponed. Inshallah, we will see if we can do something online as we transition. On behalf of the masjid, every program is going to be happening inshallah online and more. Inshallah, I'll be starting a Sira class and other classes starting from later this week. So inshallah, we will be connecting with you, our community, on a more daily basis, virtually, inshallah, and to build that bond as a community, inshallah. But here the Prophet Muhammad saying that if I were to command anyone, I would have ordered the wives to prostrate to the husbands. The response here is very simple, that as a team, you will then appreciate one another. And who doesn't applaud the captain when the game goes good? And why wouldn't we appreciate one another when the day goes good, when the challenges are faced, confronted, and defeated, when new heights are reached? So this was out of respect that Prophet ﷺ said, I would have. He didn't, so it doesn't happen. It's interesting to me, it's mind-boggling that people who point this hadith out say how barbaric is this religion. It's commanding women to prostrate to men, but majority of these same people watch Bollywood films where the women always bow down to the men and touch their feet and everything else. It's just, I'm sorry, this is just a cultural hypocrisy where we see something as an amusement, but then we deem the same thing in that same context barbaric in our religion. The Prophet Muhammad SAW gave rights for all humans. The Prophet that came to abolish tribalism and racism and sexism and all types of problems that the society was plagued with is the last person you can assume his words, sallallahu, or his advice would be contrary to what he came to abolish or what he came to establish for the betterment of humanity. So, understanding the context of what the Prophet ﷺ saying, I would have, but he didn't. But it was just alluding to how much appreciation you should have for each other. How much appreciation would an employee right now have for a boss that says, you know what, we're staying afloat. I'm going to keep on paying you guys. You guys continue to work from home, or some of you guys come to office, workload will be cut 50%. We're going to do it. How many people go up to that same boss and hug them and high five them? Well, of course, you can't touch each other right now. Virtual high fives and virtual handshakes. handshakes and appreciation. Guess what? Thank you so much. You've done this for me. Well, that's appreciation that happens in a home between a husband and wife, between the captain and the team and the team and the captain. This is about responsibility and accountability. We should not assume responsibility, nor should we fight for responsibility. For every responsibility in this world has accountability today and tomorrow. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to be the best of who we should be to each other. Ameen Rabbil Alameen. Aisha radiallahu ta'ala asked the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who has the greatest right over a woman? And he said, her husband. She said, who has the greatest right over a man? And he said, her mother. Sorry, his mother. So this is a very touchy subject now, where there is always the fights between the in-laws and the wife. Basically, the mother wants something, the wife wants something. How do you balance these cultural problems in our society today? Again, Aisha radiallahu anha asks the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who has the greatest right over a woman? And he said, her husband. She asked, who has the greatest right over a man? And he said, his mother. A woman came to ask the Prophet ﷺ about some matter, and when he had dealt with it, he asked her, do you have a husband? She said, yes. He asked her, how are you with him? She said, I never fall short in my duties except for that which is beyond me. He said to her, pay attention to how you treat him, for he is your paradise and your hell. So subhanallah, this hadith is now going to be expanded and explained in the following page. As we go into understanding it, we have been taught right now that a husband has the greatest right over the wife, and the mother has the greatest right over the man. So it seems here that apparently a mother can tell her son how to treat the wife, and since the wife has to listen to the husband, that means she has to listen to the mother. Not at all. This is wrong. The greatest right over someone doesn't mean dictating their life beyond that realm of responsibility. A man is always responsible to the mother, and the mother has the greatest duty over him. But that doesn't mean that responsibility and duty could spill over and take over his financial life, his family life, his marital life. No, that's not how it works. And unfortunately, our cultures have become such where the in-laws can dictate how a marriage goes, how the children live. And that's again the same culture that has destroyed the beauty of our deen Islam. It has smeared it to an extent that every single person today blames Islam for how marriages are failing. I plead to you, that's why we're doing this. These are difficult topics, especially for anyone who's joining us today for the first time. They might be like, what are you guys doing? Well, 180 pages brought us into the thick of the storm, and we have some more thickness in this storm to go through before we see the sun again. And it's confronting this stuff that, since we did not learn in its context, has gone out of context, been taken out of context, and caused the problems we're seeing in our society today. The wife, the woman, the greatest duty, so the greatest right over a woman is her husband's. So let's understand that first. The Prophet ﷺ gives us the example of this lady who came to him, and he said to her, how are you with your husband? And she said, I'm doing my best. And he's like, do good, because he didn't say like do better, you better do better. No, he's like, keep doing good, because your marriage defines your heaven or hell. He did not give an open check to a man to do whatever he wants, and that the woman should do whatever he says. These duties have already been these duties have been laid out by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Respect, serving one another for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, talking nicely, helping the home, build, as we say in our class, the sisters class, we'd say, build your castle. It's your castle. Build it, expand it, make it what you want together. This is a place where you should rule together for the betterment of the entire universe. This is the microcosm where it all starts from. And so It does not sanction for abuse, domestic violence, profanity, slurs. This is not what it's talking about. But he told her, continue doing good because in serving your husband, there is your heaven, and in not serving, there is hell. Again, the concept of teamwork. But does that mean a man doesn't serve the wife? No. Of course the man serves the wife. But the responsibility here based on religion's criteria is that the wife had the greatest responsibility over the wife. The duty is the husband has the greatest right. How can a Muslim woman complain about taking care of her house and husband when she hears these words of the Prophet's guidance? She should fulfill her household duties and take care of her husband in a spirit of joy because she's not carrying a tiresome burden. She is doing work in her home that shows that she knows will bring reward from Allah. The Sahaba, may Allah be pleased with them, and those who followed them understood this Islamic teaching and transmitted it from the Prophet ﷺ. When a bride was prepared for marriage, she would be told to serve her husband and take care of his rights. Thus, the Muslim woman knew her duties towards her husband, and down through the ages, caring for her husband and being a good wife were established womanly attributes. One example of this is what was said by the faqih al-Hambali Ibn al-Jawzi in his book Ahkam al-Nisa, page 331, in which he quotes in which he states, and I will quote his words. In the 2nd century after Hijri, there was a righteous man called Shu'aib ibn Harb. He used to fast and spend his nights in prayer. He wanted to marry a woman and told her humbly, I am a bad-tempered man. She replied tactfully and cleverly, the one who makes you lose your temper is worse than you. He realized that there stood before him a woman who was intelligent, wise, and mature. He immediately said to her, you will be my wife. This woman had a clear understanding of how to be a good wife, which confirmed to the man who had come to seek her hand that she was the woman who would understand the psychology nature of her husband and would know what would please him and what would make him angry. She would be able to win his heart and earn his admiration and respect, and would close the door to every possible source of conflict that could disrupt their marital life. The woman who does not understand these realities does not deserve to be a successful wife, though through her ignorance and shortcomings she may provoke her husband to lose his temper, in which case she would be worse than him for being the direct cause of his anger. I want to pause here. Interesting thing here. This is really interesting. When marriage occurs, a team is formed. When the team is formed, it's her duty and his duty to understand each other. The best thing she can do is to understand who he is, and then to help him build off of his good and to help destroy his evils and vices. For example, many people want a good marriage, but then they see that there are flaws in their spouse. Now, I'm going to talk about marriage in general. Every human being has their flaws. Everyone. The thing is, you only see those flaws for what they are face value after marriage because now you're living with the person. Now, taking this story into account, let's bring it in perspective with the current day reality. If you were to use that person's weaknesses and flaws to trigger them in anger, it is a foolish act because all you're doing is destroying your marriage. But if you were to close the doors on those evils and vices and weaknesses that the spouse has and allow them to focus and flourish on their goodness, you've done something amazing. So, for example, if a good player is now transferred over to a team and the Okay, everybody, that's it. It happens in a class a few times already. I think around 30-40 minute mark, it just cuts off. So I'll be back to where I was talking when I just noticed that the whole screen stopped. If a player was transferred to a team And the team has brought this player on for one reason, to help make the team successful. But the player comes in and says, I'll do what I want to do. I'll do what I want to do when I want to do. It doesn't matter how good of a player they are. The entire team is going to fail miserably. You don't come into a marriage to do what you want. We grow up as children doing what we want. And then we become couples to do what we need. What I want, what we need. And then when we have children, we do for their future. But unfortunately, for some odd reason, the trend we're noticing is, I don't know how people's childhoods went, but when they get married, they all individually want to do what they want to do. So there's no marriage. Husband's going Sunday to his friends and she's going to her friends, and the kids are stuck at home or they're going to their friends. It's not a marriage, it's just a reckless situation that's occurring. So the Muslim woman who is a wife is not in slavery. She is actually in a position to govern her world, her home, her house in a tactful way, in a very wisdomatic way, so that she can help these people become great, her children, herself, and her spouse. So if you actually look at it, he may be the captain by name, but she has so much at her disposal to actually mold this entire situation. She is not helpless in this situation. Everything's at her disposal. That's why the author says you should, with joy, take care of your house, build your family, educate yourself, because you have the opportunity to do it. The responsibilities on both of you, accountabilities on him. So both of you will do, because this is yours. It's your marriage. It's your children. It's your home. And so for these derogatory terms to come up, well, that's for you and they're your kids and it's not my home. These words go to show that our marriages are so weak and frail that one gust of wind could break it down. So here comes this man who was pious as a worshiper. He was, as said, fasting in the days and praying at night. But he said, I got an anger issue. I got a temper issue. Nowadays, a lot of people have anger and a lot of people have a temper. And those anger, the things that are triggering the anger is so many different things. There's so many foreign elements that help play into triggering anger in an individual. The last thing you want is for that to happen in the home. And so how to quell the situation, how to bring calm and peace in the home. It's something, a tactic that a wife can do that a husband cannot. Is it for him? No, it's for us. When the kids have problems, she has the ability to use her wisdom as a mother to bring out the good of the children and to suppress the evilness that and the vice or the weaknesses that fester time and time again. Why is she doing it? Because she's a slave of these kids? No, because she's a mother of these kids. She is preparing before she dies, as he is preparing before he dies, a spit image replica of the two of them that will continue living a legacy of what they leave behind. So marriage is such a beautiful part of our world. It helps our world turn towards betterment. And if we stop marrying and we stop having children, then this world cannot be inherited by people of good that can fix it. And if we're not building these marriages to build the human beings to actually confront those issues, then we've done an injustice to the trust that Allah has entrusted us with, and that's this entire world that we live in. So, wisdom has to be a part of marriage. When one side is angry, the other side knows how to calm the anger down. Fire on fire doesn't make the situation better. And so we move forward. The tactful woman is never like this. She helps her husband to be of good character by displaying different types of intelligence, cleverness, and alertness in every way she deals with him. This opens his heart and her to her and makes him fond of her, because being a good wife is not only a quality that she may boast amongst her friends, but it also a religious obligation for which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will call her to account. If she has done well, she will be rewarded. But if she has fallen short, she will have to pay the penalty. Now let me explain this to you. Again, it could sound different, and I want to put this in context. I'm not here to support the author. I don't even know who the author is. I never met him personally in life, but I understand where he's going here. For example, you're working for an airline. The airline commands you to, on your schedule, you have to be on 5 flights today. By the time you're on your fourth and fifth flight, you're tired, you're exhausted. But according to the airline policy, there is no excuse for you to treat the final passenger any different than you treated the first passenger in the morning when you were alert, awake, and energized. These are people you don't know. These are people who have no relationship with you. They have no blood connection to you. But your duty is to smile. If they're angry, you listen and smile. If they are frustrated, you help calm their frustration down. Why? Because you're an employee of an airline and you're carrying the image of the airline on your shoulders as an employee. And what's the last thing that you worry about? Losing your job. I don't want to lose my job, so I'll have to drink it up and I'll have to smile and I'll have to be good. What's the reward for that? A paycheck for 40 hours. Now, I'm giving this example because we understand what it means when it comes to protecting that aspect of our job. Now, take that job mentality and put it into the home. Now, of course, the airline will stand by you if an employee, if a customer or a passenger abused you. The employer will stand by you if someone did something wrong to you. Allah is going to stand with you if your husband does wrong to you because there's no justification for that in Islam. We've talked about that plenty. But when it comes to the frustration, how to calm their frustration down, when they are lost, a hug goes a long way. A word of comfort goes a long way. You have, as sisters, the tactics and ability Allah has put in you that He hasn't put in a husband, He hasn't put into a man. And that's what the author is saying. Use that for the betterment of the marriage. It will bring it will open a door of love in the heart of your spouse that was never there before. Because love isn't a physical thing, love is more of an internal thing. It grows as a marriage grows. And so, subhanAllah, if a person as a spouse was to do their part as a wife, to do her part in this marriage, using the tactics and the wisdom to help them become better, help the world become better. There's a saying that a wife can do for a husband what a mother can do for a son. If she does that part, that on the day of judgment is her Jannah. And that's what it says, that on the day of judgment, that's going to be the reward. She will be rewarded for that. Just like the company tells you, you represent us well. If you do that, you just get a paycheck. Allah is going to give us goodness in this world and goodness in the next. No marriage should be a suffering. No marriage should be a jail sentence. No marriage should be, a life sentence, as people call it. It's not supposed to be wrong. It's become wrong because no one's been working on making it right from the get-go. We always work on it once we see that all three tires are flat and the fourth one is about to pop. That's where we're like, oh, what's going on here? But it's too late at that time. If we were to work this on a daily basis, just like a coach takes a broken team and he works with them season after season until they become title contenders and they win the title. It could take 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, but if you're focus driven, you will see progress every day. Allah wants us to have goodness today. Allah wants us to have goodness in our grave. Allah wants us to have goodness tomorrow. For the sake of Allah, He tells us, sisters, He tells us in Quran that He's going to make our families come together in Jannah. Our efforts today will be together for eternity tomorrow, inshallah. This is the most beautiful life. So why make it hell now, only hoping it's going to become heaven tomorrow? No, it's supposed to be right. So what can I do to make this marriage right? If the wife starts thinking this and the husband starts thinking this and then the children start thinking about making the family right and everyone's invested in their home. No one's invested in their home today. Everyone's invested outside their homes. If you invest in your home, in your castle, in what belongs to you, with those people that are part of you, it's a win-win situation. But the question we need to ask ourselves at this juncture is, how much time are we giving for us and how much time we're giving for others? And so you could see that very blatant and clear that there's something wrong in the math here. And may Allah forgive all of us and allow us to turn back to what we need to do and do it correctly, inshallah. So, one of the most important ways in which the Muslim woman obeys her husband is by respecting his wishes with regards to the permissible pleasures of daily life, such as visits, food, dress, speech, etc. The more she responds to his wishes in such matters, the happier and the more enjoyable the couple's life becomes, and the closer they are to the spirit and teachings of Islam. The Muslim woman does not forget that her obedience to her husband is one of the things that may lead her to paradise. As the Prophet Muhammad said, if a woman prays her 5 daily prayers, fasts the month of Ramadan, obeys her husbands, and guards her chastity, then it will be said to her, enter paradise through whichever gate she wishes. Salama radiallahu anha said that the Prophet Muhammad said, any woman who dies and her husband is pleased with her will enter paradise. The Prophet Muhammad drew a clear and delightful picture of a well-beloved, easygoing, loving, righteous Muslim wife, the one who will be happy in this world and the next. He said, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, should I not tell you about your wives in paradise? We said, of course, Ya Rasulullah Sallallahu. He said that the wives of paradise, meaning the women who will be with us tomorrow, our wives of today who will be with us tomorrow. They are the ones who are loving. If she becomes angry or is mistreated on her husband, becomes angry, she says, my hand is in your hand. I shall not sleep until you are pleased with me. What does this mean? There's 3 things here. Let's go backwards. A woman of paradise is someone that knows that the love in the home and the happiness in the home is pivotal for her happiness. And she says that I shall never sleep until you are pleased with me, meaning what? It's not slavery. Until we as a team are together and we, inshallah, love each other for the sake of the home, this is what I want. If she is fully invested in the home, then inshallah the home is invested in each other, and inshallah we'll be in paradise together. This is how the mentality goes. I just saw one comment that there's breaking up. There was a break in between, but inshallah we got back on. I have not seen any other break. I'm just going to check my internet quickly here, and we are doing quite well, alhamdulillah, with the internet. We are on 5G too, inshallah. So I'm hoping that the speed is good. I hope that there's not a problem on anyone else's end. We did break once. It did break and had to reload it. So inshallah, forgive me for that. It happens. It's been happening quite a few times in this last few times. After 40 minutes or so, it breaks and I would turn it off. This time I was able to reload it. So inshallah, again, if you take out of your mind, and again, I think we all need to, when it comes to abusing, when it comes to disrespecting, when it comes to overworking, when it comes to enslaving a spouse. If you take those things out and we now look at what the Prophet said, the Prophet is talking about the women of paradise, the wives of this world who are the wives in paradise are the ones who are loving and the ones who never want to see anger in the house and the ones that say, shall never sleep until you are pleased with me. Again, if you took those things out of your head, you'll realize that happiness with each other makes wonders happen in the home and in anything. If a team at work is happy together, they'll do amazing work as a team. If, for example, a startup has gelled together, they will become a global company. It's what you want from each other. So the Prophet ﷺ is painting the picture of a home that is a home that replicates the home of paradise, and that is where both of you, not just the wife, of course, the husband also. Why is it talking about pleasing the husband? I said this before. This is about what the wife has to do. There's a book for what the husbands have to do, and we do teach that once a month after Fajr in the masjid, inshallah, and we'll be teaching it online too, inshallah. Now, going back, it says that the wife does things to please a husband. Now, there's a very important line here. What the wife does to please the husband means she should not go out of her way in 2 things. She shouldn't go out of her way to do something immoral and immodest. And number 2, she shouldn't go out of her way where then Allah's commands are compromised. So that's why the Prophet ﷺ said, you do your daily 5 prayers. Of course, you fast in Ramadan. And you obey your husband and guard your chastity. What does that mean? If you think about it, You're going out right now with your friends. The women are going out with their girlfriends. They're all going out. Um, what is the mindset for that compared to when you're going out with your husband? Not to a function, not to a dawat, just with your husband. Doesn't matter if it's grocery shopping, doesn't matter if it's going for a walk. What's the mindset? And I think it's right to say here, if we were to take that mindset of when we go out with our friends, that type of happiness and that type of looking forward to it and that type of dressing up for the occasion and that type of willingness, if we were to take that and add that to with our husband, it would make some more sense because the husband is someone you're living with and it's good to build that relationship. Nowadays, if we're at home, like, who cares how I look or who cares if someone's happy or not? I'm exhausted. This is not how a home was run at the time of the Prophet ﷺ. They had less things. The homes were small. The houses didn't have furniture. The beds, the mat made of leather, under which there was the date palm leaves that left markings on the back of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. They never had Tempur-Pedic mattresses. They never had memory foam mattresses. They didn't have frame beds. But there was happiness, and that's exactly the point that I'm trying to understand. How was there so much happiness despite the absence of materialistic things? Like, materialism is, materials, items, a pot, a pan, a bed, a chair, simple things. We're not asking for a lazy boy. We're not asking for a massage chair. Simple things. The Prophet ﷺ's homes did not have the simple things, but they had teamwork. They had love. They look forward to seeing each other. They look forward to spending time with each other. They look forward to conversing with each other. These things are the hardest things to find in a marriage today. And so the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is telling us through the teachings, the multiple teachings, the different layers of teaching, this is what we're striving for as a team. Let us work together as a team in our homes. And this current crisis has a blessing to it. Yes, we cannot go out. Yes, we cannot mix with our friends. Yes, we cannot go to the dawat. Yes, those conferences and events have been canceled and the flights have been canceled. Good. At least now spend time with the people that you were brought together by Allah to live in eternity in paradise tomorrow. Make that happen. So let us do that and spend that time. So that time is spent, it's built, it's a process, and as each layer and each floor is built, you will be able to see and feel the progress, inshallah. But remember, it doesn't come at the cost of immodesty and immorality. So if a husband says, I want you to dress up like this, and it's immodest and immoral, you don't do that. This is not a question about Jannah. This is a question about your preserving your deen. So that understanding should be created in a marriage, whereas the marriage evolves, the wife doesn't have to become immodest or immoral to gain the attraction of the husband. A new door of love has opened in that time frame in the marriage, where the both of the couple see the internal beauty of the other, that it's not about this stuff. So just keep that in mind. Immorality and immodesty is not a way of gaining the pleasure. This has to be clear. And the second thing is, we don't compromise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Any marriage, any home that compromises the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will never see happiness. Just keep that in mind. If you're going, for example, if you want to spend, for example, family time, it says go spend family time, and in doing so you miss your prayers. In doing so you do something haram. In doing so you eat something haram. In doing so you see something haram. Brothers and sisters, and especially for our sisters who are online today, it's not going to bring happiness. It's going to bring short-term happiness, long-term misery. So remember, you can have a lot of fun in this country. You can go out to the parks, you can go out climbing, you can go out venturing into the mountains, whatever you want to do. It's great stuff. There's so much to do here. You can go to theme park, but you can also pray. You can also do the things that are good. You could eat things which are halal. So the thing is that in building a marriage, one should never feel compelled to compromise their Allah or compromise themselves. Just remember that. So as we are building this relationship of what a marriage is, we're learning one other thing now, and that is that it shouldn't come at the expense of compromising your modesty and your morality, and it shouldn't come at the cost of compromising your deen and your Islam and your Allah and your Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We've already learned it doesn't come at the cost of compromising your safety and security. So domestic violence, domestic abuse, verbal abuse is already a no-no. We've thrown that out a long time ago. And we've also thrown out these foreign concepts that are stuck to us when we talk about marriage, only because that these things have normalized due to the absence of what a marriage is supposed to be. Now, going over the point of the mother. Now, I want to keep that in mind because as the authors continue to discuss this, we may not be able to cover that point today. So I want to cover that myself before we go forward for the next half an hour. What we need to understand is that the greatest right over a man is the mother. Meaning what? That the mother has a responsibility, has the son has a responsibility over the mother, and the mother has a right over the son that cannot be dissolved because of his job, because of his activities, because of his marriage, because of his children. The mother's responsibility and right will remain. But it doesn't show in Islam, in our history, that the mother's right and the wife's clashed. It never happened. As a husband's responsibility is to ensure that he's taking care of his wife, he's taking care of his mother. However, that person can, based on their circumstances. You can't draw up a scenario because everyone's scenario is different. Some people's parents live with them. Some people's parents live down the road, a town over, a country across the ocean. People have different scenarios, and financially also the means and accessibility to go and visit them. There are many factors that play in. The best way to summarize this is that a son will always be a son of the mother, and so that the son will always have a duty and responsibility towards the mother. Keeping that in mind, we should not use that as a bargain chip when it comes to a marriage. What the responsibility is towards the mother and the responsibility is towards the wife, none of these two should overlap the other. It's very simple to do them separately. We have time for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We have time that we drive, there's time that we walk, there's time that we talk. Like everything in our life, we give it the due time and the due need. The need that's there, we fulfill it in the manner and method that it needs to be fulfilled. Why is it that we are seeing today in our culture it's either your mother or me? Why are we seeing that the fact that a marriage it's in the rocks because the wife perceives the mother to be evil, of her husband's mother to be evil, or vice versa. This is a nonsense notion in our culture that has festered over time because we allowed our Bollywood films and of course the reality on the ground to become just that. So the only way to do this and to understand this is it is a man's responsibility to ensure that he's fulfilling the rights of his mother to the best of his ability while not jeopardizing the rights and duty towards his family. This is a discussion we will have with the menfolk, inshallah, once we hit the same chapter that we are on with the sisters. So I hope that answers that point. It's very important. Moving forward, inshallah, we'll do another 2 pages and then we'll conclude for today. Mashallah, we will finish at 2 o'clock, inshallah. Moving on with what the author says, the true Muslim woman knows that Islam, which has multiplied her reward for obeying her husband and made it a means of her admittance to paradise, has also warned every woman who deviates from the path of marital obedience and neglects to take care of her husband that she will be guilty of sin and will incur the wrath and curse of the angels. So what is this paragraph telling us? Islam, as it tells you and I, that through serving each other, this is a means of paradise. We're learning the opposite, that in our lack of service to one another and depriving the other of our service and time deliberately, it can be a means of incurring wrath and the curse of angels. The Imam Bukhari and Imam Muslim report from Abu Hurairah radiallahu ta'ala that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that the Prophet ﷺ says, by the one in whose hand is my soul, there is no man who calls his wife to his bed and she refuses him, but the one who is in the heaven will be angry with her until the husband is pleased with her once more. Let me just read this and I'll explain this. And it's important we're addressing these, what we would call triggered issues that no one, people seldomly talk about because they feel it's going to cause an uproar. We're discussing these things as they come in this book because we don't want to miss anything out. It's only right for us to do what the book is saying and then for us to discuss these hadith and these traditions. The angel's curse will befall every woman who is rebellious and disobedient. This does not exclude those um, who are slow or reluctant to respond to their husbands. It says in a hadith, Allah will curse those procrastinating women who, when their husbands call them to their bed, say, I will, until he falls asleep. Marriage in Islam is intended to protect the chastity of men and women alike. Therefore, it is the woman's duty to respond to her husband's requests for conjugal relationships. She should not give silly excuses and try to avoid it. For this reason, several hadith urge a wife to respond to her husband's needs as much as she is able, no matter how busy she may be or whatever obstacles there may be, so long as there is no urgent or unavoidable reason not to do so. In one of these hadith, the Prophet Muhammad said, if a man calls his wife to bed, let her respond, even if she is riding her camel, i.e., very busy. Now, let me explain this here. This is a very important point, and I think we will end with this today because this needs explanation. Many people would say, what kind of religion we have where a prophet says a man calls a woman even if she is busy at the oven, she needs to come and tend to his needs. Now, there's a way of looking at it as you would see it, that the man saying, okay, I need you right now, and she has to just drop everything and come. If there was an understanding in a relationship, in a marriage of each other's needs, each other's wants, as time grows in a marriage, when you're talking about a decade, 2 decades, 18 years, 25 years, whatever the marriage is, this was enough time to know each other to your core. You should know each other. You should even kind of understand what they're thinking, what they want to eat, each other. Now, I'm saying the wife, I'm saying each other. Because you've lived together so long, you've understood the person so well. The thing is, nowadays in marriages, we are living together for so long, but we're not understanding each other. Many husbands and wife don't even know their spouses' likes or dislikes, best food, best color. And again, it's not, these are not like important factors that you need to know in a marriage, but it goes to show how much we are lagging in understanding the person that we have committed ourselves to each other, and we are producing the children for the next generation. Like, why is there so much gray area in a marriage at this time? This is a question that needs to be addressed individually. Why is there so much distance in a marriage? If it's a team, the team should be coming together, looking forward to being together. Husband, doesn't matter if it's 25 years, should look forward to coming home, or the wife should look forward to coming home from work and to be with the other. Nowadays, we find every excuse to be elsewhere but. Right? You can be everywhere but the home. And now a lot of people are depressed, they're stressed, they have anxiety. Why? Because they're stuck in their home. You're not stuck in your home. You have been given time in your home with your family, with your spouse, with your children that represent you, that replicate you, that want to be like you, and more. And so this is an opportunity to mold. This is a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the time that you're spending yesterday or today with your family and your children. Kids were supposed to go back to school, but they're still home, and they're going to be home based on our local ISD for the next week or so, and they're talking about online classes. So why is it so hard to spend time with those that we classify we love? Why? Well, it's because the amount of distance that has occurred while the people that love each other have allowed to form over time. It's distance. That distance has formed darkness. That darkness has formed the lack of a surety. You don't know what's happening. And so instead of anticipating to meet the other, you dread the other. You dread your spouse, you dread your children, and that is Shaitan's zone. That's where shaitan creates the misconceptions, the misunderstandings, the rumors, the ill feelings, and then we run with it because that's what triggers our emotional state. When it comes to a relationship, as the author is talking about, and these three hadith were enumerated on the same topic about the angels cursing, the one thing that a husband and wife can do is to be open with each other, and one of those things is a relationship. If in a marriage a wife and a husband cannot talk about a relationship, it goes to show how distant the two of them are. There's no shame in the discussion of a relationship between a husband and a wife. There should be no shame. There should be no gray area, because that's the one thing is permitted for the two of for a husband and wife to do. But in our cultures, not only in our religion, we don't talk about these things. And that's one of the topics that we were going to have in our marriage seminar that the Taqwa Seminary was putting together, was to confront this head on. There is so much teaching and elaboration from the Prophet Muhammad when it comes to marital relationships. For many people, it'll be mind boggling because many of them will hear it for the first time. Well, our religion is very open and clear cut about these things, but we, in our cultural mindset, oh, don't talk about them. Then, if you don't talk about what is a physical need and also a spiritual need, then where do those emotions go? Very simple. Those emotions and minds go to fantasizing about other people, other things, and then they go happen other places. That's why the Prophet Muhammad is saying that the relationship between a husband and wife should be such a teamwork, a gelled relationship. You know each other, you click. It happens so instantaneously. Like one could drop something, other one will pick it up. You're picking up slack when it comes to the kitchen, when it comes to the homes, when it comes to the groceries, when it comes to the kids. Like it's such a teamwork, nothing fails. Mashallah, that's a unit. It's a perfect unit. And that perfect unit also understands the need of time with each other, for each other, and that happens seamlessly. So even if the husband was to ask, the wife should not feel compelled to do something. She should feel happy because this is a relationship that the two of you are having. Of course, there are times, as the author wrote, that is not permissible for her to do so, unless it said unless there was uh, an urge. As long as there is no urgent or unavoidable reasons, what the author wrote, that means that if a lady is on her menses or something else happens in that case, then of course it's understandable. But when a relationship, a marriage is so sour that the marital relationship is null and void between the couple, then let it be known, based on the context of these ahadith, it is bringing the curse of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the angels on the person. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect everyone from this. So as we conclude this afternoon with this ongoing, this is not the first, this is an ongoing class for our sisters, our sister folk, and this has been, mashallah, the chapter about a Muslim woman and her responsibility with her husband. And inshallah, we are going to continue this topic next week, inshallah, and we'll talk a bit more about attraction and desires, and how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given a halal avenue and channel to fulfill these things, and in the absence of that, haram becomes a staple in our society, which we see happening all over today. So we read this book only so that we reflect. I always tell the sisters in the class, we're not reading this because there's not better topics to discuss. Everyone loves discussing hadith and fiqh and sirah and other classes, which are great. But realistically, sisters, it all will become better if we build this tree. We talked about the tree, and the tree is Allah. The roots is Allah. If my connection with Allah is right, then my connection with myself, my connection with my parents, my connection with my spouse, my connection with my children, my connection with the society at large, this is a tree that we're building. And so we are on point number 3 right now. We talked about that relationship with Allah. And if that relationship with Allah is here, then I have that relationship with myself. Self-care, knowing who you are, your relationship with your parents, your relationship with your spouse. It's all part of becoming. Our religion teaches us to become, to be, to evolve, to become that good human being. If we bring value in ourselves, brothers and sisters, that value will only increase with every person that we interact or become a part of. Maybe our spouse, our children, our extended family, our society, our neighbors. It doesn't have to be something that you impose on people. Respect doesn't come by putting it on people that you better respect me. It comes because you have respected Allah, you've respected yourself, and now you are gaining the respect from the greater society. So alhamdulillah, okay. Jazakallah khair for that. Please do check your internet signal. I think we're going to be working with this. I was 5 minutes late today because I was trying to play on my laptop to see if we can do through laptop. Unfortunately, I don't have the masjid YouTube through my laptop as yet, so we're doing it with a cell phone. But inshallah, we will continue this journey, inshallah. In reference to the time spent at home today, let us continue making istighfar, asking Allah for forgiveness, saying astaghfirullah rabbi min kulli dhanbi wa atubu ilayh, or just saying astaghfirullah. Ask Allah to forgive us. What we're seeing in our world today, it's very heartbreaking, and it's testing exactly that understanding that we had, that perception that every day will be just like the previous day, and every week will be like the previous week, and every month will be like the previous month. We never thought, we never fathomed the idea that world could stop, and the world is stopping. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran what Nuh alayhi salam said to his people after 950 years of propagating a message, فَقُلْتُ اسْتَغْفِرُوا رَبَّكُمْ. Ask Allah for forgiveness. Turn to Allah and seek His forgiveness. And seeking Allah's forgiveness entails three things. Number one, remorse. Number two, the words itself. First, you have to have remorse. You have to acknowledge that there's something wrong. You have to acknowledge that the wrong is in you also. That's the remorse you need. And then you make the istighfar, and that is the repentance. And number three is rectification. Rectification is exactly what this book was about. How can I make things work? It's never too late, sisters, when it comes to your relationship with Allah. It's never too late. Your relationship with yourself, it's never too late. Your relationship with your parents, never too late. Even if they've passed on, it's still not too late. The Prophet ﷺ taught us how to even strengthen or better or mend or rectify that relationship. When it comes to your relationship with your spouse, never too late. Our deen teaches us it's never too late. It's only late once your soul is out for good. Until then, what we learned today, when it comes to the teamwork, when it comes to the respect, when it comes to that click of a couple, let us aspire for that. Let us put aside the notions. Let us help each other become the best that we can be. A wife's responsibility is to be her best and to be an inspiration for her spouse to be the best. A man's duty is to be his best and to inspire his wife to be the best also. So let us become better as people. Today is a new day. Yesterday is gone. Tomorrow is unassured. We have today, inshallah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive all of us. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide all of us. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala better us all in His sight. If we become better in Allah's sight, then Allah will make us best in this world also. And lastly, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us a solution in our world that is desperately in need of a solution. These topics of discussion will continue. Inshallah, I'll be launching a few classes online this week. As I said, we will be starting a Sirah class, inshallah. We'll be starting a class on the army of Allah, i.e. the angels, discussing who the angels are. Some really amazing topics going to come forth, inshallah, very soon. Wa iyaakum, sister, for your comment. May Allah reward you and your family. Let's do this together, inshallah. We are a community. We are one family. We are not here to say who's better and who's worse. We're not here to criticize each other. We're here to pick each other up. And these are times when we need to pick each other up. So we're going to make our istighfar. We're going to remorse. We're going to repent. We're going to rectify the situation. We're going to take our homes by the horns, and we're going to make them work, inshallah. This is our investment. This is the investment of the sisters. This is the investment of the children. This is the investment of the husbands and the brothers. We're going to make this happen, inshallah. And as a community, at a time when our hearts are aching that we cannot see each other, call each other. spend half an hour a day if you can, just to call people on your phone book. It doesn't matter if they're people from Chicago when you used to live there, or New York or California. Call them and say salam. Bring smile on the faces of people. Allah will bring smiles in your home, inshallah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless all of you, sisters, and thank you so much for your patience. And I apologize for the little technical glitch we had. And inshallah, we're going to continue this journey together, inshallah. Keep well, stay happy, stay positive. Pray for yourself, pray for your family, pray for humanity, and if you remember, pray for my family and I as well. Jazakumullah khairan to all of you. Take care, and we'll speak to you all soon, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.